President Trump is on Air Force One right now. He's on the way to Anchorage, Alaska for the big summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Happy to welcome on and say good morning to Lieutenant General Richard Newton, News Nation senior national security contributor, joining us on KCMO in Kansas City. And Lieutenant General, we appreciate the time and just found out that you were early in your career stationed at Knob Noster. Is that right?
I was, Pete. Good morning. Great to be with you. I was actually the first B-2 Stealth Bomber Squadron commander there at Whiteman Air Force Base, one of the best tours of duty for me and my family ever. So it's a great memory for us, and thank you for highlighting that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here. So first off, your thoughts on today, where President Trump, of course, is headed to Anchorage, Alaska, and what a best case scenario is in this summit taking place this afternoon?
Well, high stakes. First summit between a Russian president and American president since 2021. But the bottom line is we need a stern, unrelenting president, which I think we'll see on display in Alaska, and compel Putin to take a ceasefire in place. That's the objective, which then sets the stage for follow-on high-level meetings regarding a negotiated settlement to this war between Ukraine and Russia.
So do you think that President Trump is going into this trying to get obvious concessions out of President Putin, or is this just more of one of those feel-him-out kind of meetings, see if he can sense some weakness, and then bring the rest of the world to the table?
Well, first and foremost, I think really this is Putin, frankly, needs Trump more than Trump needs Putin. That's the backdrop in my view. But what's changed is Iran, when we struck the nuclear weapons development facilities with those B-2 stealth bombers and some Tomahawk cruise missiles. Obviously, Trump has increased military assistance to Ukraine, but really where he's really getting tough is on the economic warfare aspect of this with could be tougher sanctions as well as tariffs on the key oil trading partners. And so the outcome is like I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, is get a ceasefire and then lay a foundation for also negotiations between Putin and Zelensky, with the United States certainly there hosting that, and perhaps make it a quad talk environment where you've got Russia, United States, Ukraine, but also Europe, I think is key. But right now it's a lot of cards on this table, but first and foremost, let's get an end to the fighting.
Lieutenant General Richard Newton, News Nation senior national security contributor, joining us on KCMO in Kansas City. So when you look then, Lieutenant General, at what this summit today can ultimately lead to, I think part of it is what you just mentioned, and that is also kind of scaring Putin into, hey, if you don't play ball here, economic sanctions are coming. How much pressure can these economic sanctions actually put on Putin and Russia that has been going through this war now for the better part of nearly 4 years?
Yeah, well, what's changed is the fact that Russia, over the last couple of years, has really had to change their entire economy to a warfare or war-fighting economy. Secondly, the basis of that economy now is the oil sales. Think of Russia as a big gas station, and they've got customers such as China, India, Brazil, others that are providing 20 to 30% of his entire economy. So first and foremost, if you put tougher sanctions on Russia and the enforcement of those sanctions, that will lend itself to leverage. Secondly, however, more so, is you put tariffs against those customers who are buying Russian oil and gas. China and India purchase about 75 to 80% of all the oil and gas exports coming out of Russia right now. And so what President Trump has demonstrated to Putin is he levied another 25% tariffs against Indian goods being sold to the United States on top of already 25%. So that's 50% tariffs against a key trading partner, that oil and gas, India, with Russia. And then looming there, although President Trump has said, I'm going to hold off for the next couple of months, it could be tariffs against Chinese goods coming into the United States, which would also compel China perhaps to walk away somewhat of trading and purchasing that oil and gas, which is such a vital lifeline, Pete, to Putin's economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about the European angle on this? How much say do you think the European leaders who met with the president via Zoom earlier this week should have and ultimately will have in whatever this potential deal between Russia and Ukraine ends up looking like?
Well, last Saturday, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Rubio met with European leaders and really which set the stage for this week and was a very effective sets of meetings, which then led to a video teleconference earlier this week with President Trump and the European leaders, including President Zelensky of Ukraine. That has really solidified a position that the United States certainly is in line with Europe, but also with Ukraine, much more than we've seen to date. And so President Trump is going into this summit here in a couple hours that he has not only the support, but the backing of the European leaders. And that's important because it'll show a strong, again, if you will, a wall that is solid that the United States is part of. The European leaders also have really underscored with the president, appropriately so, that first and foremost, you cannot trust, Putin. And the fact is that not only is Ukraine's future perhaps in the crosshairs here, but also Europe as well. I think the president really understands that and has grown in his personal and professional relationships with many of these European leaders. That's key, Pete.
Yeah, it is. Last thing, I got a minute, Lieutenant General, but what about Zelensky? What should he be advocating for here?
Well, first and foremost, supporting the president, which he's done, over the last couple of weeks or so, showing that there's no daylight between his position and the United States. Third, however, and I would support President Zelensky in this, is making sure, Mr. President, as we go into a ceasefire, hopefully, and then the ensuing peace negotiations, that I and Ukraine have many security guarantees. And what those security guarantees are is in the event that Putin breaks the ceasefire or perhaps walks away from any type of negotiations, those security guarantees, including increased tariffs and sanctions or the threat thereof, providing military capabilities and continue those so I can defend my country, but also provide offensive capabilities. Perhaps from a political standpoint, give me a clear path where I can join the European Union, not so much NATO, but the European Union. I also want to make sure that the fact is that you'll provide me increased intelligence and support, but also leverage Putin that will allow perhaps European peacekeeper troops either on my soil or on the periphery to make sure that we keep a close eye, and Putin knows that we're keeping a close eye in the event that he would want to even contemplate thinking about a third invasion that could occur.
Well, Lieutenant General Richard Newton started his career, of course, right here in Missouri. How about that with the B-2s down at Whiteman? News Nation senior national security contributor on KCMO. The News Nation coverage starts tonight at 5 o'clock Central. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
My best to you, Pete. Great talking with you.
Absolutely. Same to you. We'll do it again soon. Lieutenant General Richard Newton on KCMO. Coming up.